All right, everybody, welcome back to another session. Today I am finally feeling like I am getting this implosion compression thing down. And here's the two rods I'm going to use. It's a 12 millimeter rod that I'm going to start out with, and then I also have a 6 or a 5 millimeter rod as my puntee. But I really found that this 10 to 12 millimeter rod really helped out. So I just want to make sure the tip of my rod is nice and clean. And then the size of it not only helped me to gather the amount of clear I needed to in a timely manner, but I was able to get, it was easier to handle on a larger rod as well. And when you're building your gather, this is going to end up being about an inch. You are looking for your gather to be at least as big as your final pendant. At least as big as your final pendant. So when you get the size gather that you like, you need to flatten it. And I found that if you just heat the front side of your gather and let the back side, the shoulder side, kind of cool down, you will have more success than if you were to press it down like this on the side with the graphite paddle. That does not always help. Sometimes it will push it off center like I just did. So let me go and just heat the front side up again, just the front side, and let's press it down, straight down, and give it a kind of a turn. And I noticed that that really helped to push it back onto a better looking center disc. And then from here, we need this disc even thinner, like about half the thickness. So we're going to start to press this down with my mini mashers. And as I go around and press the glass down, a little button of glass will remain at the center. And so I had to go heat that and press that down every time. And so in these next few minutes, what I'm basically doing is this process until that little button doesn't show. So I'm going to press this down, and then we will heat it up again and do the mini mashers, and then that little button shows up again. So I think it took 3 times for it to not show up, and then that told me, okay, this is the thickness that I'm looking for. And it seems to be maybe an 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little thicker than that when everything is finished. And I think I am going to do this one more time just to make sure that it feels nice and thin. But of course, you don't want it too thin either. So you're just looking to get a nice, the disc as thin as you can without it, being too easy to collapse. Okay. So at this point, I'm going to do that one more time. And then we'll start to get into the colors. So just flattening this out. Now, I had a good story for you guys today about a character I know, an amazing glass artist. His name is Gianni Toso. He is an Italian maestro, not only of furnace glass, but also of the soft glass and flameworking. And I'm sure he's just as good in boro, but I've never seen him work in boro. This guy is just insane, though. I took a workshop from him. It was so cool. But before I get into that, let's start this pattern. I'm going to use the intense black to add the tiniest dots that I can possibly add. And I tried to get a triangle of dots, but that was so off-center that it was like, okay, that's not going to work for me. So let me just flatten these down and just continue to add more dots in the center of this disc. And I can kind of see a good area of where I need to place them because I can see through the disc to the rod and how it makes this kind of circle that you can see in the center of the disc. So that's kind of where I'm keeping all of these little dots concentrated in, is that little center part. Either way, you're going to add those dots for your stamens and then flatten them down. And this is kind of not perfect, but it doesn't have to be perfect, especially with these flowers, let me tell you. So now we're going to get into the petal part, and I am going to use a very light transparent color as not only a base color, but as kind of like I wanted to set myself up with a guide, something that you might not even see. And I don't even think you saw this in the long run, but I add 3 slightly curved lines, okay, around all those stamens. And they ended up being little S curves because, I'm trying to figure out where to hold the glass that makes most sense for me, whether it's on the top of the flame, grazing the flame on the top, or on the side, or on the bottom. It's kind of different every time for me, so I'm just trying to kind of work things out in my brain as we go along. So the next row is going to kind of overlap the 2 below it, so it's going to be a slightly longer curve. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It can be completely wavy. In fact, this looks, I thought this was so sloppy, but it actually worked out great in the long run, so I was glad. But you see how the lines are getting longer and longer, and as we go out further towards the edge of the disc. And hopefully you can see the pattern here when I heat it up and go to start pressing it down. You just want to make sure all your pattern's on here and it's completely smooth and pressed down before you begin your implosion or compression bead. Pendant. So I'm going to flatten this down, and then I'm going to start to add my color pretty much exactly how I added that transparent color. I'm just going to add it, or try to add it, right on top of each one of those kind of guidelines. So yeah, there were some great workshops up at the museum when I was there, and one of the most memorable ones was working with Gianni Toso. He did I think it was a demo at the museum, and then he did a workshop up in Michigan at another studio up there. And oh my gosh, God, that was like some of the best glass work I've ever seen in my life being made right in front of my face. It was amazing. So I'm going to add this red. Again, I'm slopping it on here. It doesn't always turn out great, but you can see that if you can at least do better than what I'm doing here, or somewhere close to what I have here, it all ends up being on how well you do the compression, more so than how perfect your pattern looks. That's one thing that I'm going to love about these. But Gianni Toso is he is famous for these chess sets that he has made, and they're in a lot of museums and collectors of high-end glass art. But the most famous one, and I think it's at the Corning Museum, is the Orthodox Jewish people versus the Roman Catholic people chess set. And if you just Google it, it is amazing. Just looking at his work was so inspiring for me, because I wanted to learn how to get out of the round. I just wanted to learn how to, be able to freely sculpt something, or at least how to start. And taking his workshop was a huge, not only eye-opener for me, but it was one of the very few times in my glass working that I felt like my skill level really leapt, instead of just taking small steps. It was a leap getting into making my lady busts, the heads that I made. Like the very first demo I put out was called The Maiden's Head, and it was just a bust of a woman. And I was just so into making these, and it took me a long time to get to what you see in that first video. I mean, I couldn't even get the shoulders down. I had to really focus mostly on just the head and the neck. So I made a whole series of pieces that were like, you know, all right, let's get into some severed heads. Because it was just like, well, what am I going to do with just a head? You know, so after years and years of just making these heads and figuring out just the face and the eyes and what works best for, you know, the eyebrows and just the things that I learned from his class and just incorporating them into and trying to figure out how to make them work for me. And after a while, after several years of making not so good faces, I'm going to add a little bit more yellow here, not to interrupt myself, but I'm getting back into this pendant. You know, I just felt like having the black stamens there, I needed some yellow because I remembered that I wanted the background to be black, and you wouldn't see those. So I'm going to add some very tiny yellow dots to hopefully stand out in the center of the flower when I'm done. Either way, no matter what you add at this point, you want to make sure it's all nice and flat before you start any kind of implosion or compressing of the glass. But yeah, so after a couple years, I was able to figure out how to do the neck and the shoulders, and at least the hint of a dress on these lady heads. And that's about as far as I got. And honestly, it's been years since I've worked on any of them because I've been so busy, you know, trying to build the channel here and to get as much information as I can out. You know, I can't make a head every time because, you know, it gets old and boring. So, so you have to, I try to keep things as interesting as possible and to keep as many new techniques coming to you as possible. Okay, anyway, so let me get back into this because now we're doing the compression. And I'm holding this and I'm just turning it, and what I'm looking to do is heat up the very edge of the clear and kind of get it to melt inward. So I'm also kind of holding my glass at a downward angle to coax the glass from the outside of the disc and get it kind of starting to move towards the inside. And you can just, it takes so long for it to happen. It's like watching it in slow motion. And I even sped this up a little bit, you guys. The whole video, like I said, took about 40 minutes to do. And I did speed up a little bit of the heating process just because it takes so long. But you can kind of see here, what's happening is that there is kind of a cup forming in the center of the disc. And when you see that, you're going to go ahead and flatten it out, and then you're going to have an even more flattened pattern that looks like it's kind of pulled in a little bit. Now you could continue compressing that out, but I thought that if I added a little bit more clear, and I'm pretty sure this is a thing, you can add more clear around your discs to make it a little bigger so you can continue to add more color. So that's kind of what I was investigating here. I thought I'd add some color, melt it down, smooth it out a little bit, and then add some of the same pattern but in green to the very edge in hopes to get some kind of leaves behind the flower. Didn't work out so well for me, but you do see a little pop of green in the end. But it was good. It was good to do this because I'm pretty sure that if I can figure this out, you can continue to add pattern and compress pattern. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And what was I saying? Yeah, working into these lady heads and stuff, and then haven't worked on any in a while, and I should. And I'd really like to get into more sculpting again. And I see that we're getting close to like the 103 series, which is like almost like a freak out. Like we're like almost, 20 maybe demos away from the 103 sessions. And I've been thinking about, of course, I'm just going to continue, trying to, inspire myself and inspire others, with making new pieces and stuff. But I think I might try to do a little bit more sculpting with the soft glass in that series. We'll see. All right, so here is everything ready to add this final color to, and I'm just going to add it right around the edge if I can. Of course, I feel like it wouldn't be me if it wasn't sloppy at some point somewhere in the bead or in the pendant. But doing the workshop with Gianni Toso, we used to call him Johnny Torso, because he made the human figures, I mean, they were very different from like Lucio Bubacco's human figures, but or any others. But when you are that good at glass, or anybody, when you start to really practice in glass, you find your own style. It just automatically happens because you can't really copy anybody's work. It's just impossible. I mean, you would have to be so good to copy another person's glass work that you might as well just make your own. You know what I mean? And it just, everybody has, it's like your signature. Everybody's work is different. And so I don't think that there's anything like copying of going on. I don't know. I mean, unless you're like trying to copy like a Mona Lisa or something, and get away with it, it just doesn't, So I don't worry about freely giving away my lampworking knowledge, what little I know of it, and it isn't much. Anyway, so here I am. I'm going to go back into the compression again, and I am just right on the edge trying to pull that glass back in to the center. Now, the only problem that I'm having here is that I'm just kind of shaky, and things are also getting hot. So at some point, I'm going to press this down. I just want to start to get that glass to kind of curve in a little bit. And I keep moving my hands out of the way because they're like getting super hot. My glass rod is just too short at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my rod extender and stand on the side of the torch, on the side of my table. So at this point, I can't even see what's going on. I'm just doing my best to keep everything steady now that I have a rod holder and it's easier for me to turn. And then you'll start to see a little bit better of where you need to be in the flame. Again, right on the edge, I'm at a slight angle, and you're looking for that little kind of cup to start appear. And I have to keep looking at mine just to see where I am. But you can also kind of see the compression or the implosion starting to happen as well. But, you see it, but then you flatten it, and then that kind of, makes it disappear again. And then it's back to the same thing. So it's this like pressing and then the melting, and kind of you're compressing. It's not really imploding as much as it is compressing the glass into the center. And you'll see the pattern also get smaller and smaller and smaller. The colors are going to be a little brighter, the ones that are on the outside of the clear. So it kind of gives you an idea of where the pattern is and how much further you have to go to complete the full compression here. I'm just checking it out here. It looks good. I got the color much more condensed into the center, and I'm going to press it down one more time and just continue with that motion until I can't compress it anymore. Anyway, I wanted to tell you about this. The demos that he did for us were amazing. he made a female and a male figurine. Both were probably about 6 inches tall. And the male figurine had a like long sleeve shirt on and pants and shoes and, had the hair and, it was like a full blown figurine. And he's not really, worried about it breaking. Like the whole time I'm like, I just don't understand. How is he able to do this and not worry about it breaking or cracking? Because in the end, he can like stand it up and be like, okay, we're done, but I will anneal it later. And we're talking about all sorts of items being added and the length and how big these pieces were in soft glass, like in the effectory glass. So it was just like my jaw was on the ground the whole time, you guys. It was just so cool. And then after like the first day was almost over, he was starting to work on this woman figure. And he was almost getting ready to put her like dress part on. He had already done her whole body, all the way to her shoes, to her head. And so the next day he comes in and he picks the piece up and it's cool. It had been sitting there and he just starts working on it again. And I'm blown away. He puts a whole lattice work like dress on this figurine that has flowers on it and looks like a garden. It was unbelievable. And like I said, I was just blown away. And I learned so much from that class. And like I said, it took years and years and years for me to get good at making like the lady heads. But that's the whole thing. You almost have to practice like the same thing every time, or a very similar thing every time. Like try a million different types of implosions or compressions, or, try a whole bunch of different types of animals or the same animal, and be very, you have to be repetitious with it. So I kind of feel like after that workshop, we also, made some work as well. And I kind of feel like maybe he thought that I had some potential, because during the last day, he kind of looked up at me and with this hopeful look in his eye, he says, are you Jewish? And I was like, no, I'm not. And he was like, oh, okay. Well, you're doing good. But other than that, he was just a very interesting character, to say the least. Very nice guy, though, and just a wealth of knowledge and information. And it was just super cool to take that workshop. I will never forget it. I even have a couple of his little heads of different figures that he let me keep after the workshop. And that was just a wonderful thing. So taking workshops when you can, if you can afford to do it, is such a great thing to be able to see and work with the people right there. This kind of YouTube is great if you don't have that, but I would always recommend a live instructor at some point. Now here's when I mess everything up on this. Not awfully, but look at how I pulled this out, and look at how hot that glass is. I don't know what I was thinking, you guys. I'm like, what is going on here? Why did I just do that? So I should have let the whole thing cool down a lot more and then spot heated that little tiny bit of color and pulled just that little bit of color off. But I think I took a bit more of the green out, but it still ended up looking okay. I wasn't in a total panic just yet. So now that I have pulled off that little bit of color on the back, and that is completely optional, you don't have to do that. What I want to do is just let everything just kind of set up. But I want to roll it and make sure that it is on center. And because what I want to do next, after it cools a bit, is add my backing color, which I completely flub up at the beginning here. Not only did I pick up a dark purple instead of what I thought was black, but as soon as I touched it to the glass, the top part of my color popped right off onto it. So I ended up in a slight struggle here. Not too much of a panic, but just a struggle And I was just like, just get the glass around, try to make a nice, straight line, do your best, just try to finish without messing anything up. And I did. I missed a little bit. There's a little color that peeks through the back, so I missed a little bit there. But I was able to kind of recover the sloppiness of that, that color lay down, and even it up with the heat and a little bit of marvering on the graphite pad. Now at this point, I am looking to just kind of finish the back side, because once you put the color, if you're going to put a backing color on, once you put that color on, you're pretty much done. You're just looking to make sure that you have a really nice kind of a low dome on the back side. You definitely don't want it flat, because I think that messes with the pattern, the three-dimensionality of the pattern. So you want to make sure that the back side is slightly rounded before you put the punty on. And that's what I'm going to do here, is just let everything cool down after that point and get my punty ready. And I'm going to hold it up in the air so that I don't have the heat coming towards me, and it can just hang out there and cool down for a second. So I'm going to get my punty ready, but I noticed that I didn't like the tip of the rod, so I'm going to go ahead and take a moment to just pinch off the end of that clear so I have a nicer bit of color there. Rod. And then I'm going to pencil point it up and just very gently wait a few seconds, count to 3, and then very gently touch what should be a cool pendant. And it should feel like kind of a stiff connection. And hopefully that will ensure that it comes off nice at the end. So once you have that on there, we're going to go ahead and take that top half of the rod off. And you can add a little bit extra clear here if you want to. It's kind of optional. And this is also the point where if you need to pull any clear away, or if there's any bubbles or any damage to this focal point, now is the time to kind of clean that up so you have a really nice clear lens when you're finished. And then I'm just going to hold it up towards the heat a little bit, or hold it towards the heat. I don't need to heat the back side of the pendant up really at all, because I'm pouring so much heat into the front of the pendant that it's kind of keeping everything warm. Okay. At this point, I'm trying to figure out what to say next. And that is my first true look at the flower, and I was like, wow, I am so happy. I cannot believe that I got to this point of success. I was super happy, you guys. So I immediately grabbed the bail that I made ahead of time and had sitting in my oven at 1,000 degrees. Make sure I dip the end in water so I don't burn myself when I go to touch the mandrel. And I'm going to heat that up when I'm ready and just stick it where I need to on the mandrel and just hold it there until that glass sets up. And then, of course, always it's always the punty coming off at the end. I don't know what my problem is. I seem to do it different every time. Like something happens in my brain where I just go on overdrive and I'm just like, gotta get it off, get the punty off. Oh my gosh, I don't know what to do. And then, I'll end up just grabbing whatever I can and just smacking the thing off. So it came off great. I don't know why I tend to do stuff like that. Anyway, as long as you're safe, the sky's the limit. Anyway, I'm just going to melt that little bit off and melt the front a bit and put this thing away. I am so excited to share this with you guys. Let me know what you think. And as always, I hope to see you all next time in the dungeon.